There is a silent test every room runs on you within the first 5 seconds of speaking. Most intelligent people fail this test without realizing why. You may have experienced a strange moment in a meeting or conversation. You present the strongest idea in the room. Yet the room behaves as if nothing was said. Then something even stranger happens. Another person repeats the same idea. And suddenly everyone nods. At first this feels like injustice. But what you experienced was not unfairness. It was a communication test. Every social environment, meetings, classrooms, conversations, even casual gatherings, performs a rapid evaluation of your voice, rhythm, and linguistic structure before it evaluates your idea. If your speech pattern signals uncertainty, the idea is ignored. If your speech pattern signals authority, the room reorganizes around your words. Most communication advice on the internet tells you to be confident or be yourself. But confidence is not a communication structure. And being yourself does not modify how the human brain evaluates authority. Within the Trinity framework, language is not treated as expression. Language is treated as engineering. I am Grace, the Trinity English scholar. And today we enter the Linguistic Lab, the place where speech stops being emotional noise and becomes a controlled system of influence. The goal of this session is simple: to understand why some voices become background noise, while other voices quietly control the room. In the Linguistic Lab we treat speech as a branch of applied physics. Authority in speech is not determined by intelligence. It is determined by acoustic structure. Most people unknowingly produce what we call high-variance speech energy. This appears in several forms: upspeak, rapid nervous pacing, thin vocal resonance, filler language such as actually, basically, or you know. These signals trigger something very old in the human brain. They signal uncertainty. And uncertainty causes listeners to downgrade the importance of what they are hearing. The Trinity framework corrects this using 3 structural mechanisms. The first mechanism is the phonetic anchor. Most people speak from the upper chest. This produces a light frequency that resembles a request for approval. The phonetic anchor moves the center of speech into the diaphragm, producing a slower, heavier resonance. This small change dramatically alters how the brain perceives authority. The second mechanism is the hard floor. Every sentence must land with a downward tonal vector. When sentences rise in pitch, the brain hears a question. When sentences fall in pitch, the brain hears a conclusion. This downward landing signals closure. Closure prevents interruption. The third mechanism is institutional displacement. Low-status speech centers around the word I. I think. I feel. I believe. But the moment speech becomes personal, it becomes debatable. High-status speech shifts focus away from the person and toward the system. Instead of saying, I think the project is failing, the Trinity structure says, the project shows structural misalignment in its deliverables. Now the discussion is no longer about a person's feelings. It becomes about the logic of the system. At this moment a critical realization begins to appear. The problem was never vocabulary. The problem was acoustic authority. Most people are trained to communicate. Trinity scholars are trained to govern environments. Now we observe what this looks like in real interactions. Walkthrough 1. The social audit. Theory becomes meaningless if it cannot survive social friction. Imagine a small meeting or social gathering. One individual dominates the conversation, interrupting others, correcting small details, and subtly controlling the tempo of discussion. Now observe 2 different responses. Non-Trinity response. Well, I was just trying to say that I think the park design might be a little expensive, but maybe I'm wrong. I just wanted to share my opinion. This response signals uncertainty. The speaker apologizes before even presenting the idea. The room interprets this as low conversational authority. Now observe the Trinity response. The interruption is noted. We are returning to the primary topic regarding the fiscal structure of the park design. Secondary commentary can follow once the budget analysis is complete. Notice what happened. The Trinity speaker did not compete emotionally. Instead, the interruption was categorized. Labeling behavior instantly reframes the interaction. The room begins to perceive the interrupter as the disruptive variable rather than the dominant voice. This is the social audit. Authority is established by controlling tempo, not volume. Walkthrough 2. The executive firewall. The previous scenario occurred in a casual environment. The next environment is more subtle and far more dangerous. Because in professional settings, power struggles rarely appear emotional. They appear procedural. Imagine a board meeting. A senior executive casually suggests that a successful project was a team effort, quietly diluting the contribution of the person who designed it. Observe 2 responses. Non-Trinity response. I actually worked really hard on this project and stayed late many nights, so I think it's important to recognize the effort I put in. This response focuses on effort. Effort rarely wins power negotiations. Now observe the Trinity response. The project's success is the result of the architectural framework established in the first quarter. Supporting input from other departments contributed to secondary execution layers. The documentation reflects the original framework as the project's structural origin. Notice the difference. The speaker did not ask for recognition. The speaker restored the technical record. By shifting the conversation toward documentation and structure, the authority of the work becomes institutional rather than personal. This is the executive firewall. Power is preserved by controlling the narrative architecture. Walkthrough 3. Crisis governance. The final test occurs when emotional chaos enters the room. Most communication strategies collapse when aggression appears. The Trinity framework does not. Imagine a public meeting where an individual begins shouting and attempting to intimidate others. Observe 2 responses. Non-Trinity response. Please stop yelling. You're being aggressive and this is upsetting everyone. This response acknowledges the aggressor's emotional frame. And once you enter that frame, the aggressor controls the interaction. Now observe the Trinity response. The transition into aggressive tonal behavior is noted. Communication will resume once the discussion returns to a professional baseline. The primary topic will now continue. The speaker does not argue. The speaker redefines the environment. By describing the aggression as a variable rather than reacting emotionally, the Trinity speaker becomes the stable point in the interaction. The more chaotic the aggressor becomes, the more composed the Trinity speaker appears. This is crisis governance. Authority survives by refusing to merge with chaos. Key takeaways. The Linguistic Lab teaches one simple truth. Silence is not empty space. Silence is structural control. First, remove emotional leakage. Replace I feel or I think with structural observations. Second, master the hard floor. Sentences must land downward. Authority is heard before it is understood. Third, use institutional displacement. Speak through systems rather than personal opinion. Fourth, maintain the still axis. When the body becomes still, the voice becomes the center of gravity. Homework. Your assignment for the next 48 hours is a biometric speech audit. First, remove the words I, me, and my from professional requests. Replace them with structural nouns such as the project, the deadline, the requirement. Second, identify one filler word in your daily speech. Common examples include actually, just, basically. Delete it completely. Replace it with a 1-second pause. Third, record yourself delivering 3 sentences that end with a downward pitch. Example: the resource is unavailable. Listen to the final syllable. Authority lives there. Finally, practice the 3-second vacuum. After someone finishes speaking, wait 3 seconds before responding. You will notice something interesting. Most people become uncomfortable with silence and begin revealing additional information. This is where conversational power begins to shift. Most people spend their lives trying to be heard. Trinity scholars do something very different. They engineer environments where ignoring them becomes impossible. If you are building that level of presence, subscribe to this channel. Because the next lab session will reveal how rooms decide who becomes invisible and who becomes inevitable. See you in the next frame.